She forged my name on a $400,000 loan, then told me I should be grateful, that I was finally doing something useful with my perfect credit score. I still had the papers in my hand when her lawyer served me a defamation threat for exposing the fraud. My name was on everything. My future was on fire. And Krista? She was sipping green smoothies under my name, literally grinning on camera about scamming her loser sister to build her brand. She thought I'd panic. She forgot I'm the quiet one, who documents everything. Let's just say, I paid off the loan, but not a single dime came from me. But before we begin, let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. My name is Claire Mendel, and I'm 35 years old. I teach literature part-time at Portland Community College, grading papers in my quiet apartment between sips of coffee from my favorite corner cafe. My older sister, Krista, once my closest friend, hasn't spoken to me since she skipped our mother's funeral 4 years ago. Just another disappearing act in her long history of chaos. My shoulders still tense when I think of her platinum hair and camera-ready smile, always preceding some new crisis or borrowed credit card. What she never realized was how carefully I documented every betrayal, every forged signature, every manipulative text, filing it all away in my mind like a living archive. My hands are steady now when I handle paperwork. Divorce taught me that. But let me start from the beginning. The first voicemail came during my morning class. I was teaching Shakespearean sonnets when my phone buzzed against my hip. Some 503 number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail, like I always do with unknown callers. You know how it is these days. Too many spam risks. Between classes, I grabbed my usual Americano and finally checked the message. Hello, this is Marcus from Wells Fargo's Commercial Lending Division regarding your defaulted business loan. Please contact us immediately to discuss payment arrangements. I almost laughed. Had to be a wrong number or some new scam angle. I deleted it and went back to grading papers, the autumn sun warming my favorite spot in the campus cafe. Remember those moments when life feels completely normal right before it implodes? Yeah, that was one of them. The second call came during my office hours. Same bank, different rep. This time I picked up. Ms. Mendel, I'm calling about the $400,000 loan default for Radiant Wellness LLC. We've sent multiple notices. My coffee mug stopped halfway to my lips. I'm sorry, what loan? The small business loan approved in March. The payment is 90 days past due and there has to be a mistake. My voice came out sharp enough to make a student passing by jump. I've never taken out a business loan. I teach part-time at a community college. Papers rustled on the other end. Ma'am, I'm looking at the application right now. It's tied to your social security number and credit profile. Would you like me to email you the documentation? The room tilted slightly. Yes. Please. I packed up my things with trembling hands and drove home, barely registering the traffic lights or the fact that I'd left half my students' essays sitting on my desk. My apartment felt smaller than usual, the walls pressing in as I booted up my ancient laptop. The email was already there, 5 attachments. I hit print and paste while the pages slowly emerged, each one feeling like another nail in my coffin. There it was. Loan application, business plan, projected financials, tax documents, all bearing my full legal name, social security number, and what looked exactly like my signature. Radiant Wellness LLC, a revolutionary wellness brand, promising transformative health solutions. The kind of vague, glittery marketing speak that makes my teeth itch. But the numbers were crystal clear. $400,000 borrowed against my name and credit, with 3 missed payments already destroying my credit score by the second. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I spread the papers across my coffee table. The business address caught my eye. 4892 Morrison Street, Suite 205. 20 minutes away, in one of those gleaming business parks near the river. I grabbed my phone and pulled up my calendar, typing with savage force, 9 a.m. tomorrow, visit Morrison St. Office. Then I added, bring docs. As if I could forget them, they were burning a hole in my consciousness already. You ever feel like you're watching yourself from outside your body? Like you're floating somewhere near the ceiling, looking down at yourself as your world crumbles? That's where I was, suspended between disbelief and rising panic, staring at my name signed over and over on papers I'd never seen before. The nausea hit in waves. I stumbled to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face, gripping the edges of my sink. In the mirror, my reflection looked ghostly pale, except for two angry red spots high on my cheeks. My phone buzzed again, another Wells Fargo number. I let it go to voicemail, sliding down to sit on my bathroom floor. The cool tiles pressed against my legs as I hugged my knees to my chest, trying to breathe through the vertigo of it all. $400,000. My name, my credit, my future, all of it hijacked while I'd been grading papers and rebuilding my quiet life. Tomorrow, I'd drive to that office and prove it was all some cosmic clerical error. It had to be. The alternative was too horrifying to consider. But deep down, in that place where we store our darkest certainties, I already knew. This was no glitch. This was deliberate. This was personal. And somewhere in this city, someone was counting on me being too shocked, too overwhelmed, too beaten down to fight back. The next morning dawned with that particular Portland gray that makes everything feel like you're underwater. I'd barely slept. The loan documents spread across my kitchen counter where I'd left them after hours of rereading every line, searching for… what? A mistake? An explanation? Some sign this wasn't really happening? I pulled into the parking lot at 8:45, 15 minutes early because that's who I am. The responsible one, the planner, the woman who shows up on time even when her world is imploding. The building was exactly what you'd expect. All glass and steel and California modern architecture. Probably built in the last 5 years when this part of town went from industrial to innovative workspace solutions. And there it was, painted in rose gold letters on the ground floor window, Krista Marlowe Wellness Co. My sister's married name, gleaming in the weak morning light. My stomach clenched so hard I thought I might be sick right there in the parking lot. Remember how I said some memories stick like splinters? The scent of lavender hit me the moment I pushed through those glass doors. The same essential oil blend Krista used to wear in high school when she was just starting to build her personal brand. Back then, it was cute, watching her practice her influencer smile in the bathroom mirror. Now it felt like a slap in the face. The lobby looked like someone had given Pinterest a blank check and unlimited access to West Elm. Cream-colored everything. Potted plants that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and inspirational quotes in that ubiquitous modern calligraphy. Your wellness journey starts here. And embrace your radiant truth. Can I help you? A receptionist who looked fresh out of college peered up at me from behind a white marble desk. I'm here to see Krista Marlowe. Do you have an appointment? Tell her Claire's here. Her sister. The girl's perfectly groomed eyebrows shot up. She picked up her phone, murmured something I couldn't catch, then smiled that customer service smile. She'll be right out. I stood there clutching my folder of loan documents, trying to steady my breathing. The walls were lined with magazine covers featuring Krista's face, all gleaming teeth and knowing eyes, headlines promising "Transform Your Life" and "The Secret to Radiant Living." Claire? Oh my God, what a surprise. And there she was, striding across the lobby in a cream silk jumpsuit that probably cost more than I made in a month. Platinum blonde hair, yoga-sculpted arms, that same magnetic energy that had always made people orbit around her like moths to a flame. What brings you by? It's been, 4 years? Her voice was warm, but her eyes were sharp, assessing. I pulled out the loan documents. Care to explain these? She barely glanced at them. Let's talk in my office. I followed her down a hallway lined with more inspirational quotes and into a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. The view of the river was spectacular. More proof that crime pays, I guess. So, she said, settling into a white leather chair behind her desk. You found out about the loan. Found out? The bank called me about defaulted payments on $400,000 I never borrowed. She smiled. That same smile from the magazine covers, but colder somehow. The company needed capital for expansion. Your credit score was perfect. You never use it for anything. I knew you wouldn't mind helping family. My hands were shaking. You forged my signature. You stole my identity. Stolen is such an ugly word. She leaned forward, voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Good luck proving it wasn't consensual. Your signature's on everything. Properly witnessed, notarized, the whole deal. And really, Claire, who's going to believe you? The part-time teacher who's clearly jealous of her successful sister's business? The room spun slightly. I gripped the edge of her desk to steady myself. I'll go to the police. With what evidence? You'll look like exactly what you are. The bitter little sister trying to tear down what I've built. She stood up, smoothing her jumpsuit. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a team meeting. You can see yourself out. I walked out of that office in a daze, past the perfect lobby and the perfect receptionist, into the gray Portland morning. In my car, I finally let out the scream that had been building in my chest since I first saw her name on that window. 4 years of silence, and this was how she chose to break it. By trying to destroy me. I drove straight from Krista's office to the police station, an aging brick building that smelled like coffee and floor cleaner. The desk sergeant listened patiently while I explained about the forged loan documents. But his expression told me everything before he even opened his mouth. Ma'am, this sounds like a civil matter. Identity theft is serious, but when it's family... He shifted uncomfortably. You'll need solid proof it wasn't authorized. You know that feeling when your stomach drops and your throat gets tight? That's how I felt standing there, clutching my folder like a lifeline. I'd seen that same dismissive look too many times growing up. Teachers, counselors, even our parents when Krista borrowed my things. The credit bureaus were next. 3 hours of hold music and circular conversations later, I had a stack of fraud alert forms and a headache. Every representative said the same thing. They'd investigate, but since the loan was already approved and in my name, remember how landlines had that satisfying slam when you hung up? My cell phone's gentle tap just didn't deliver the same catharsis. I called Wells Fargo next, pacing my apartment's worn carpet. I understand you need to investigate, I told the fourth person I'd been transferred to. But this loan wasn't... Ms. Mendel, our records show proper documentation and verification. If you're claiming fraud, you'll need to provide evidence. The voice was polite but firm. Meanwhile, the payment schedule remains in effect. My hand shook as I wrote down the numbers. Monthly payments of $4,800. Default penalties already accruing. I'd taught enough basic math to know this equation ended in disaster. The courier arrived just as I was hanging up. Express envelope, legal letterhead. My fingers felt numb as I read, Dear Ms. Mendel, this firm represents Krista Marlowe Wellness Co. Your recent allegations of fraud constitute defamation and harassment. Cease and desist immediately or face legal action. I sank onto my couch. The same IKEA special I'd bought after my divorce when starting over meant furnishing from scratch. The late afternoon light cast long shadows across my collection of legal pads and scattered papers. 90 days. That's what the bank rep had said, 3 months before they sent the loan to collections, destroying my credit score. My lease renewal was coming up. The doctoral program I'd been quietly saving for would be impossible without loans. Everything I'd rebuilt was balanced on the edge of a cliff, and Krista had just given it a shove. You ever notice how panic has a way of clearing your mind? Like your brain finally decides, okay, enough feeling, time for action. I grabbed a fresh legal pad and started writing. Timeline. Proof needed. I kept writing until my hand cramped, each page a new angle to investigate. The sun had set by the time I finished, my apartment dark except for the street light filtering through my blinds. That same light used to keep me awake when I first moved in. Now it felt like a spotlight on my next move. Looking at my outlined battle plan, I realized something. Krista had always counted on my silence. When we were kids, when she missed Mom's funeral, when she pulled her countless disappearing acts, she expected me to stay quiet this time too. But she'd made a mistake. She hadn't just stolen my identity. She'd left a paper trail. And if there's one thing teaching had taught me, it was how to research. I opened my laptop and started a new document. Krista Marlowe Wellness Co. Business records. Public records were free to search. Property listings, tax files, incorporation documents. Somewhere in that digital paper trail, there had to be proof she planned this. The clock on my microwave blinked 11:43 p.m. 90 days wasn't much time to unravel years of my sister's schemes, but then again, she'd never seen me angry before. I'd always been good at research. It's kind of required when you teach. But this was different. This was hunting. Every night after classes, I'd curl up with my laptop and a fresh cup of coffee, diving deeper into the digital maze of Krista's business empire. Remember those crime shows where they pin photos and strings to a wall? I had the digital version, spreadsheets, screenshots, and corporation filings all linked together like a spider's web. The business databases were a gold mine. Krista had left breadcrumbs everywhere. LLC filings in 3 states, shell companies with variations of her wellness brand, vendor contracts that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. It was like watching a magic trick in reverse, seeing all the hidden trapdoors and mirrors. You know that feeling when you're about to sneeze but can't? That's how I felt scrolling through her company's LinkedIn page. Something was there, just out of reach. Then I saw it. A comment from 6 months ago mentioning their previous COO, Lena Escobar. Previous. In Krista's perfectly curated social media presence, no one ever left. They just disappeared. I found Lena's profile easily enough. Her photo showed sharp brown eyes behind stylish glasses, silver streaks in her dark hair that she wore like battle medals. Her employment history had a conspicuous gap right after leaving Krista's company. My cursor hovered over the message button for a full minute before I clicked. Ms. Escobar, I'm researching Krista Marlowe Wellness Co. for a legal matter. Would you be willing to meet? Claire. Short. Professional. Vague enough to be safe. I hit send and tried not to check my inbox every 5 minutes. 3 days later, she replied, Starbucks on Morrison tomorrow, 2 p.m. The cafe was packed when I arrived, but I spotted her immediately. Lena had that executive presence, straight spine, elegant blazer, eyes that missed nothing. She didn't smile when I sat down. Why are you investigating Krista? Her voice was careful, measured. I pulled out the loan documents. Because she forged my signature on a $400,000 business loan. I'm her sister. Lena's eyebrows shot up. She studied my face, probably seeing the family resemblance I'd spent years trying to ignore. The sister she never mentions. That's me, the invisible one. I tried to keep the bitterness out of my voice. Until she needed my credit score, apparently. Something shifted in Lena's expression. She glanced around the cafe, then leaned forward. I was fired 4 months ago. Official reason, strategic differences. Real reason? I found irregularities in the books. Partnerships that didn't exist. Revenue numbers that didn't add up. My heart started racing. Did you keep copies? Of course I did. She gave a short, hard laugh. But I also signed an NDA with teeth. Krista's lawyers made sure of that. One wrong move and they'll take everything I own. I'm not asking you to move, I said. Just point. Lena sat back, studying me. The cafe's ambient chatter filled our silence. Finally, she reached for her leather tote. Your sister's good at making enemies, but she's better at keeping them quiet. Fear, money, legal threats, whatever works. She pulled out a manila envelope. I was going to anonymous leak these eventually, but maybe they'll do more good with you. Inside were printouts, internal invoices, partnership agreements, projected revenue reports. My hands trembled as I scanned them. 2 major wellness brands listed as official partners, except according to their public filings. No such partnerships existed. The loan, I whispered. She used these fake partnerships to justify the valuation. To get approved for a loan she never qualified for. Lena's voice was steel. A loan she apparently put in your name. I slipped the documents into my bag, already plotting my next moves. But Lena caught my wrist before I could stand. Listen carefully, she said. I worked with Krista for 2 years. She doesn't just attack, she destroys. When she realizes you're coming for her, she'll hit you where it hurts most. Your job, your home, your future. Whatever matters to you, she'll try to take it first. I met her gaze steadily. It's not personal anymore. This is war. Good. Lena released my wrist. Because that's exactly what it's going to take. I spent 3 days buried in vendor research, fueled by coffee and righteous anger. Krista's website listed 6 exclusive partnerships with wellness brands, carefully worded testimonials that made everything sound legitimate and thriving. But Lena's documents showed only 3 had any real connection to the company. Remember how satisfying it feels to pull a loose thread and watch a sweater unravel? That's exactly what happened when I started making calls. Vitality Plus Supplements? I read from their glowing partnership page. I'm following up on your collaboration with Krista Marlowe Wellness. Who? The vendor relations manager sounded genuinely confused. We don't have any current partnerships in Portland. My hands shook as I pulled up Krista's site. According to their website, you've been their exclusive supplement supplier since January. There's even a quote from your CEO. That's impossible. Papers shuffled in the background. And illegal. Can you send me the link? Within an hour, their legal team was on it. The marketing director, a woman named Sarah, called me directly. This is serious, she said, voice tight with controlled fury. We're a family-owned business. Our reputation is everything. If she's using our name to inflate her company's value, she is, I said. And she used my stolen identity to secure funding based on those inflated numbers. Sarah went quiet for a moment. We want to help, but we need protection. Our shareholders can't know we were caught up in this, even unknowingly. I understand. I thought of Lena's warning about Krista's scorched earth tactics. What if we kept your company's name private until absolutely necessary? You'd only need to verify the facts if it goes to court. Send us the agreement in writing, Sarah said. We'll sign it today. That evening, Lena and I met at a quiet wine bar to compile everything. She'd brought her laptop, I'd brought my legal pad full of notes. The pieces were finally falling into place. Look at this timeline, Lena said, turning her screen toward me. She'd created a detailed spreadsheet tracking every fake partnership announcement against real bank transfers and loan documents. She started laying the groundwork 6 months ago. The forged vendor contracts, the inflated revenue projections, all building up to that loan application. Using my name, I added, the familiar anger rising, because her credit was too damaged to qualify. Exactly? Lena took a sip of wine. With Vitality Plus's statement and these internal documents, we have enough to prove fraud. The loan application will crumble. I started organizing files into a shared drive. Bank statements, forged signatures, Lena's leaked documents, the vendor verification. Each piece another nail in Krista's coffin. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something like hope flutter in my chest. My phone buzzed. New email. Subject: urgent, defamation warning from Maxwell & Brooks PR Associates. The hope evaporated. What is it? Lena asked, noticing my expression. I read aloud. Dear Ms. Mendel, our firm represents Krista Marlowe Wellness covered in matters of reputation management and brand protection. It has come to our attention that you have engaged in a systematic campaign of defamation against our client, including false accusations of fraud and unauthorized contact with business partners. These actions have caused measurable emotional and financial harm. Keep reading, Lena said grimly. We demand you cease all communications regarding Krista Marlowe Wellness Co. Immediately and issue written retractions to any parties you've contacted. Failure to comply within 48 hours will result in immediate legal action. Furthermore, any existing documentation in your possession must be destroyed as it constitutes proprietary business information. The letter went on, full of legal threats and thinly veiled warnings. My hands were trembling by the end. They're trying to scare you, Lena said. Classic Krista move. When facts aren't on her side, she attacks with lawyers. It's working. I stared at my wine glass, watching the red liquid ripple with my shaking hand. What if she does sue? I can barely afford rent, let alone legal fees. That's exactly what she's counting on. Lena's voice hardened. She thinks if she threatens you enough, you'll back down, just like I did. The admission hung between us. I looked at our careful collection of evidence, our timelines and testimonies. All the proof we'd gathered, now twisted into a weapon against us. What do we do? I whispered. I called Lena at midnight, pacing my kitchen with the cease and desist letter crushed in my fist. The streetlight outside cast weird shadows through my blinds, making everything feel surreal and threatening. I can't fight this, I said, my voice cracking. She's got an entire PR firm ready to destroy me. And that lawsuit threat from her attorneys last week. Claire, breathe. Lena's voice was steady, but I caught an undercurrent of strain. They're trying to overwhelm you. That's the whole point. Well, it's working. I slumped against my counter, where a stack of unopened bills waited like little paper bombs. I can't afford a legal team. I can barely afford groceries since the bank froze my accounts for investigation. Remember how your mom used to say money wasn't everything? Try telling that to someone watching their entire life implode over a loan they never took. I know, Lena sighed. Krista's playing hardball faster than I expected. When they came after me, it was more gradual. This is different. That made me pause. Different how? She's scared, Lena said. She's throwing everything at you at once because something's making her nervous. But Claire, she hesitated. Maybe we should take a step back, just for a few days, let things cool down. My stomach dropped. Even Lena was wavering. You're giving up? No, Another heavy pause. I don't want you destroyed by this. And Krista, she's ruthless when she's cornered. Trust me. After we hung up, I sat in my dark kitchen for hours. The bills seemed to multiply every time I looked at them. Rent, utilities, student loan payment, God, would I even qualify for loans anymore after this? My hands shook as I opened my banking app. The numbers hit me like a physical blow. My savings were decimated by legal fees. My credit score had plummeted almost 200 points. In less than 2 months, my entire financial identity had been gutted. And for what? Because my sister needed a cosigner? Hot tears splashed onto my phone screen. I wiped them away angrily, but they kept coming. Every dream I'd carefully built, finishing my degree, maybe buying a small house someday, just having some goddamn security, was crumbling because of her. Again. You know what's worse than crying alone in your kitchen at 3 a.m.? Knowing the person who put you there is probably sleeping like a baby in her luxury condo. The sun was rising when I finally crawled into bed, emotionally empty. I'd cried myself out somewhere around 4 a.m., leaving nothing but a hollow ache and the certainty that I was completely, utterly screwed. My phone buzzed just after 8. Lena's text lit up my screen. "I have something. You need to see it." I squinted at the message, head pounding from lack of sleep. A file download notification popped up. Video format, no caption or explanation. "What is this?" I texted back. "Just watch it. Now." My hands trembled as I clicked play. The footage was grainy, obviously from a phone camera trying to record discreetly. A conference room came into focus, modern and sleek, with Krista's company logo visible on one wall. The timestamp showed a date from 4 months ago. The audio crackled with background noise, but I could make out voices. One of them, crystal clear and familiar, made my breath catch. The video was still loading. "Lena?" I typed. "What am I looking at?" Her response was immediate. "The smoking gun." The video buffered for what felt like years. When it finally played, the image was shaky, someone's phone trying to record without being noticed. But the audio? Crystal clear. And honestly, ladies, sometimes you have to get creative with financing. Krista's voice, smooth as honey, filled my bedroom. I sat up straighter, pressing my phone closer to my ear. Like, did you know how easy it is to take out business loans using someone else's credit? Laughter rippled through what sounded like a decent-sized crowd. My stomach clenched. I mean, my little sister's barely using her identity anyway. Krista's tone dripped with that familiar dismissive amusement. She's what, teaching part-time at some community college? Please, I'm doing her credit score a favor, putting it to work scaling this empire. More giggles. The camera steadied enough to show Krista clearly, standing at the head of a conference table in one of those ridiculously expensive yoga sets she loved, gesturing with a green smoothie. And the best part? She leaned in conspiratorially. "She has no idea. I've got her signature down perfect. Thank you. Years of signing her birthday cards." She raised her glass in a mock toast. "To scamming my loser sister's identity to scale this thing fast. Sometimes family's only good for their FICO score, am I right?" The recording ended there. I stared at my dark phone screen, seeing nothing but my own reflection. Pale, wide-eyed, trembling, but not with fear. Not anymore. You ever have one of those moments where everything suddenly becomes crystal clear? Where all the noise just stops? I grabbed my laptop and opened my contacts. Sarah Chen, my old college roommate. We'd stayed close over the years, watching each other build careers. She'd gone into investigative journalism, specializing in corporate fraud exposés. Last month, she'd broken a story about cryptocurrency scams that went viral. My fingers flew over the keys. Need to meet. Today. Have story. Time-sensitive plus receipts. Her response came within minutes. Coffee? Usual spot? Or? I didn't even bother changing out of my wrinkled clothes from yesterday. Just grabbed my laptop, the stack of loan documents, and drove straight to our old hangout, this tiny cafe tucked between a bookstore and a vintage shop. Sarah was already there, 2 lattes waiting. One look at my face and she switched into journalist mode, pulling out her recorder. "Start from the beginning," she said. I laid it all out. The loan notification, the forged documents, Krista's smug confrontation. When I reached the video, Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Play it." She watched without expression, taking notes. When Krista's voice bragged about the signature forgery, Sarah's pen stopped moving. "You have the loan paperwork with you?" I handed over the stack. She compared the signatures, then pulled up public records of Krista's company on her phone. "The timeline matches," she muttered. "And these vendor partnerships you mentioned, they're willing to go on record?" "One is, if you protect their identity." Sarah sat back, studying me. "You know what this means, right? Once this goes live, it's nuclear. Your sister's entire brand is built on trust and authenticity. This will destroy that image overnight. I thought about my ruined credit score, my frozen accounts, the endless nights of panic and tears. Good. She nodded slowly. Give me 48 hours. I'll need to fact-check everything, get legal clearance. But Claire? A small, fierce smile crossed her face. This is big, like industry earthquake big. The wellness influencer who built her empire on stolen identity? That's a headline that writes itself. I transferred her all the files, the video, the documents, Lena's financial records. It felt strange letting go of everything I'd gathered, like handing over a loaded gun. Sarah squeezed my hand before we parted. You know what you just did, right? I looked at her questioningly. You wrote your sister's ending? She shouldered her bag. And trust me, it's going to be a bestseller. I drove home in a daze, wondering if this was really it, the moment everything changed. The sun was setting, painting Portland's skyline in shades of pink and gold. Somewhere in that glittering landscape, Krista was probably filming another wellness reel, completely unaware that her carefully curated world was about to implode. For the first time in months, I slept without nightmares. The morning Sarah's article dropped, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I turned it face down on my kitchen counter and made coffee instead, watching the steam curl up against my window while notifications kept lighting up the screen. You know that moment right before a storm hits? When the air gets thick and heavy and you can feel something massive building? That's what those first few hours felt like. I finally picked up my phone around 9. The headline blazed across my screen. From wellness mogul to felony fraud, how a celebrity health influencer built her empire on stolen identity. Sarah had done her job beautifully. The story was airtight, devastating in its simplicity. Bank documents, vendor statements, that damning video, all laid out in clean, brutal detail. No editorial flourishes needed. The facts spoke for themselves. Remember those old dominoes we used to line up as kids? The ones where you tap the first piece and watch the whole line collapse? That's exactly what happened next. By noon, Krista's biggest sponsor, some luxury protein powder company, released a statement, temporarily suspending their partnership pending investigation. An hour later, her athleisure clothing line dropped her. The wellness podcast network that hosted her show went dark. My landline rang around 2. It was Wells Fargo, suddenly very interested in exploring resolution options for the fraudulent loan. The representative's voice had that careful tone people use when they realize they've backed the wrong horse. We understand this has been challenging, she said. We'd like to work with you on immediate debt remediation. I almost laughed. Now they wanted to help? But the sweetest call came from an unlisted number. A crisp voice identified herself as Agent Martinez from the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. They were particularly interested in reviewing Krista's financial declarations over the past 3 years. I met Lena for lunch at this tiny Vietnamese place far from Krista's usual haunts. She was already there, tablet open to financial news sites tracking the fallout. Her stock is in free fall, Lena said, sliding the tablet across the table. Down 60% since this morning. Partners are scrambling to distance themselves. I stirred my foe, watching the steam rise. What about the company itself? That's when Lena's eyes got that sharp glint I'd come to recognize. That's the beautiful part. Remember how she registered everything under that fake LLC? The one tied to your stolen identity? I nodded. Well, I've been talking to my lawyer friend who specializes in liens. Because that loan defaulted, and because your identity was fraudulently used to secure it. She paused, savoring the moment. You have first right to file a lien against all company assets. The implications hit me slowly, then all at once. You mean, once the valuation drops low enough, which trust me, it will by tomorrow, you can legally seize the entire brand. Everything. The office lease, the product lines, the social accounts. All of it. My hands started shaking. I set down my spoon. And the best part? Lena continued, pulling out a folder. We can force a sale to cover the loan amount. Use her own assets to clear your name. The restaurant's ceiling fans spun lazily overhead, stirring the steam from our bowls. Outside, Portland traffic hummed past, oblivious to the corporate execution we were planning over lunch. How soon can we file? I asked. Lena checked her watch. Give it 24 hours for the market to fully react. Then we move. I've already drafted the paperwork. She slid the folder across the table. Inside were clean, official forms. Nothing like the mess of forged documents that had started this whole nightmare. My phone buzzed again. Another news alert. Wellness influencer Krista Marlowe's empire faces multiple investigations amid fraud allegations. I thought about that video. About Krista laughing while she bragged about stealing my identity. About all those nights I'd laid awake wondering if I'd ever get my life back. Do it, I told Lena. File everything. She nodded, already typing on her phone. I'll have my team start the process tonight. By this time next week, you won't just have your name back, Claire. She looked up, meeting my eyes. You'll own everything she built with it. The legal aid clinic downtown had this tired, fluorescent-lit conference room that smelled like decade-old coffee. But watching their senior attorney, Ms. Chen, methodically assemble our lien paperwork made that room feel like the most beautiful place on earth. The fraudulent LLC registration actually works in our favor, she explained, highlighting sections of the documents. Since she used your identity as the founding member, you have clear standing to seize assets. I leaned forward, scanning the forms. How fast can this move? Given the evidence, very. She tapped her laptop screen, showing Krista's company valuation in free fall. The market's already doing half our work for us. My phone pinged. Another news alert. Wellness Weekly had just pulled their glowing profile of Krista from their website. The article that once called her a visionary reshaping the wellness landscape now redirected to a terse statement about maintaining journalistic integrity. Remember those old fitness magazines Krista used to hoard in high school? She'd spend hours studying the glossy spreads, planning her future empire. Now her own industry was scrubbing her existence from their pages. Look at this, Ms. Chen said, turning her screen toward me. The bank had responded to our settlement proposal. They'd agree to clear the entire $400,000 loan in exchange for transferring ownership of Krista's company assets to me. Clean break, no residual debt. I stared at the numbers, my throat tight. Just like that? Banks hate publicity nightmares more than they love money. Ms. Chen started preparing the transfer documents. And right now, your sister is radioactive. The next few days blurred past in a stream of signatures and certified letters. Each morning brought new developments. Sponsorship contracts officially terminated, speaking engagements canceled, social media followers dropping by the thousands. I was reviewing the final ownership papers when Lena called, her voice urgent. Claire, we have a problem. Krista's trying to move money offshore. My stomach clenched. What? One of my old contacts at the company just sent me screenshots. She's attempting to transfer assets through some shell account in the Caymans. It's not just desperate. It's illegal. I grabbed my keys, already heading for the door. I'm calling Miss Chen. Already did? She's filing an emergency injunction right now. But Claire, Lena paused. You need to see this happening. Get to the office. The drive to Krista's, no, my building felt surreal. The gleaming logo still spelled out her name, but everything beneath it belonged to me now. The security guard recognized me from the paperwork filed that morning. He just nodded as I walked past. Upstairs, the office was in chaos. Employees huddled around computers, whispering. A few were packing personal items. Through the glass wall of Krista's corner office, I could see her frantically typing, phone pressed to her ear. My phone buzzed, a text from Ms. Chen. Injunction granted, accounts frozen. I watched through the glass as Krista's face changed. That moment when she realized her last escape route had closed. She slammed her phone down, then looked up and saw me standing there. For just a second, I saw past the perfect makeup and designer outfit to the sister I'd grown up with. The one who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. The one who taught me how to French braid hair and write fake sick notes for school. Then she grabbed her purse and walked out, heels clicking against the hardwood. She didn't look at me as she passed. The authorities have been notified about the attempted transfer, Ms. Chen told me later that afternoon. It's out of our hands now. But Claire? She smiled. The company's yours, free and clear. I sat in what used to be Krista's office, surrounded by her vision board photos and inspirational quotes. A notification popped up on my phone, the bank confirming the loan had been settled through asset transfer. $400,000. Gone. Just like that. Not through monthly payments or bankruptcy, but through the very empire she'd built by stealing my name. Lena appeared in the doorway, holding a stack of folders. Ready to start reviewing the books? I looked around at this space Krista had created, The clean lines, the perfect aesthetics, all of it built on fraud and betrayal. It felt both foreign and familiar, like a story I'd been reading about someone else's life. Actually, I said, standing up, I think we need to call a staff meeting first. I'd barely slept when Ms. Chen called the next morning. Claire, get down to the courthouse, now. What's happening? Your sister's here, she's… A commotion crackled through the phone. Just hurry. Remember how Krista used to make dramatic exits at family dinners? She'd storm out, slam doors, then text me later like nothing happened. But this time felt different. This wasn't just another tantrum. This was desperation. I grabbed my coat and rushed downtown, finding a cluster of people outside the courthouse steps. Local news vans lined the curb, and there, in the center of it all, stood Krista. Gone was the polished wellness guru who'd threatened me in her pristine office. Her mascara had smeared, platinum hair disheveled. She wore yoga pants and an oversized hoodie, so unlike her carefully curated image that for a moment, I didn't recognize her. She's been stealing from me for years, Krista shouted at anyone who'd listen, always jealous, always wanting what I built. My hands started shaking, not from fear this time, from anger. How dare she try to flip this narrative? I'd spent years ducking her calls when she needed money, cleaning up her messes, making excuses for her no-shows at family events. A small crowd had gathered, phones recording. Krista spotted me and pointed dramatically. There she is, the sister who couldn't stand seeing me succeed. 2 security guards moved toward her. She dodged them, stumbling on the steps. I gave you everything! She was crying now, mascara running worse. I made you part of something bigger than your sad little teaching job. The guards reached for her arms. She jerked away. You were nothing before this, nothing! My voice cut through her hysteria, calm and clear. You forged my signature, Krista. You stole my identity. It's all on video. The crowd murmured. Someone whispered, Isn't that the wellness fraud story from the news? Krista's face crumpled. For a split second, I saw genuine fear in her eyes, the reality of her situation finally hitting home. Then the guards took her arms, firmly this time. Ma'am, you need to leave the premises. Get your hands off me. Don't you know who I am? But that was exactly the problem. Everyone knew who she was now. They escorted her down the steps, her sobs echoing across the courthouse plaza. Phones kept recording as she was guided to the street, her protest growing weaker. When they finally let go, she stood there swaying slightly, makeup streaked down her cheeks. A reporter stepped forward with a microphone. Ms. Marlowe, do you have any comment on the fraud allegations? Krista stared at the camera, mouth opening and closing. No perfectly scripted wellness wisdom came out. No inspirational quote about manifesting your best life. Just silence. Then she turned and ran to her car, the same white Mercedes she'd bought with stolen money. The tires squealed as she peeled away from the curb. My phone buzzed, a text from Lena with a screenshot attached. The sleek homepage of Krista's wellness empire now displayed a stark message. This site no longer exists. Below it, Lena had written, It's really over. I sat down hard on the courthouse steps, legs suddenly weak. A few reporters drifted over, but Ms. Chen appeared and waved them back. You okay? She asked, sitting beside me. I nodded, though I wasn't sure. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving me hollow. It doesn't feel real. Give it time. She squeezed my shoulder. The truth usually takes a while to settle in. I looked at my phone again, at that simple error message that represented the collapse of Krista's carefully constructed facade. The brand she'd built, the image she'd crafted, the lies she'd told, all of it disappeared with a few keystrokes. The morning sun hit the courthouse windows, reflecting bright light across the plaza where Krista had just imploded. Somewhere in the city, she was probably already plotting her comeback story. But it wouldn't work this time. The cameras had caught her true face, not the serene wellness guru, but the desperate fraud she'd become. My phone kept buzzing with notifications, news alerts, messages from old friends, even a few former clients of Krista's reaching out to share their own stories of deception. But I couldn't look at them yet. I just sat there, feeling the weight of years of manipulation finally lifting from my shoulders. Later that evening, my phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. My throat tightened. I recognized Krista's writing style instantly. You think you've won? You're still that pathetic little girl who needed her big sister to feel special. I made you relevant. Without me, you're nothing but a divorced failure teaching community college students who couldn't cut it at real universities. Hope you enjoy your sad little life now that you've destroyed mine. I stared at the words, waiting for the familiar sting, the self-doubt that usually followed Krista's attacks. But something had changed. The message sat there, venomous and desperate, and I felt nothing. No pain, no anger, not even pity. Remember when we were kids and she'd accidentally break my toys, then convince Mom it was my fault for not sharing? The scent of her strawberry lip gloss as she'd lean in close, whispering, "Sorry, baby sister," with that fake sweetness. My stomach used to knot up just thinking about it. I took a deep breath and opened my settings. Blocked her number. Then I went through every social platform: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, even my old Twitter account. Block, block, block. With each tap, decades of manipulation dissolved into digital silence. My laptop chimed with a new email, confirmation from my landlord. The purchase agreement was complete. My apartment was officially mine, bought with the proceeds from liquidating Krista's company assets. I ran my hand along the familiar wall, feeling the slight bump where I'd patched it last spring. This space was mine now, really mine. I grabbed the bottle of champagne I'd been saving and texted Lena, "You free tonight? Need to celebrate with the woman who helped make this possible." She replied immediately, "Get over here." Already chilling glasses. Lena's condo sat high enough to see the city lights spread out like scattered stars. When she opened the door, she was wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater, so different from her sharp corporate look. "Brought us something special," I said, holding up the champagne. She grinned. "Dom Perignon? Fancy." Seemed appropriate. It's what Krista always insisted on at her launches. Figure we earned the real thing, not her knockoff version. Perfect karmic balance. Lena took the bottle, examining the label. "You know, when you first contacted me, I almost didn't respond. Thought you might be working for her, trying to trap me in some kind of liability setup. What changed your mind?" She handed me a glass. "Your eyes. When we met at that coffee shop, they had that same look I saw in the mirror every morning after I discovered her fraud. That mix of betrayal and determination." The cork popped with a satisfying thunk. Lena poured, the bubbles dancing golden in the low light. "To justice?" she suggested, raising her glass. I shook my head. "To reclamation of our names, our peace, our truth. Even better." Our glasses clinked. The champagne was crisp and clean on my tongue. Through the window, a plane's lights blinked across the dark sky. Somewhere out there, Krista was probably plotting her next reinvention. But she'd have to do it without using my name, my credit, my life as her ladder. "You know what the biggest win is?" Lena said softly. "We didn't just take her down. We did it legally, properly. With paperwork and proof. The paper trail she never thought we'd follow." "Exactly." Lena topped off our glasses. She always said documentation was for small minds who couldn't see the bigger picture. I laughed, while she was forging documents left and right. The irony, right? Lena raised her glass again. "To the small minds who brought down her big dreams. And to never letting anyone steal our stories again." We sipped in comfortable silence, watching the city twinkle below. The champagne tasted like victory. Not the burning triumph I'd imagined, but something cooler and cleaner, like finally being able to breathe. The morning sun hit the courthouse steps with that particular Portland clarity, the kind that makes everything feel a little more real, a little more permanent. I stood there, holding two pieces of paper that had completely reshaped my world: the foreclosure deed to Krista's company and the title to my new studio space. You know that moment when you finally put down a heavy bag you've been carrying? That's what this felt like. My shoulders literally felt lighter. A breeze rustled the papers, and I had to smile at the irony. How many times had Krista mocked my obsession with documentation? "God, Claire, you're such a control freak with your little filing systems," she'd say, rolling her eyes while borrowing money she'd never return. The memory of strawberry lip gloss and fake sympathy flashed through my mind, but this time it didn't sting. I walked down the courthouse steps, each one feeling like another layer of the past falling away. My phone buzzed, probably another reporter wanting a statement about the wellness empire collapse or influencer identity theft scandal. They'd been calling all week, hungry for more details about how the mighty Krista Marlowe had fallen, but I didn't need to feed that story anymore. The headlines had done their job. Social media mogul bankrupted by own identity theft scheme. Wellness queen's empire crumbles under fraud investigation. Sisters' revenge, how one woman reclaimed her stolen identity. The studio was only 15 minutes from the courthouse. I'd driven past it dozens of times before, never imagining it could be mine. It sat on a quiet street, set back just enough to feel private, but close enough to still catch the morning bustle of coffee shops and commuters. The key felt solid in my hand. Not like the temporary apartment keys I'd collected over years of moving, running, starting over. This one had weight, purpose, promise. I thought about that hidden camera footage that had changed everything. Krista's smug face as she bragged about using my identity. Now the only cameras following her were paparazzi catching her dramatic exit from her penthouse apartment, designer bags replaced with hastily packed cardboard boxes. The lock turned with a satisfying click. Inside, sunlight streamed through tall windows, painting rectangles on the hardwood floors. The space smelled of fresh paint and possibility. No trace of artificial wellness influencer perfume or carefully curated Instagram backdrops. My footsteps echoed as I walked to the center of the room. Empty now, but I could already see it filled. My desk by the window, shelves for my books, maybe even a small teaching space. A real classroom, not borrowed community college rooms with flickering fluorescent lights. The deed and key made a soft sound as I set them on the windowsill. Outside, a young woman hurried past, phone in hand, probably checking her social media. I wondered if she'd ever followed Krista's authentic living posts or bought into her Manifest Your Dreams workshops. The thing about dreams, though, they're only worth something when they're actually yours. I pulled out my phone and opened my blocked contacts list. Krista's name sat there, grayed out and powerless. No more manipulation, no more guilt, no more identity theft, emotional or financial. The studio's acoustics carried the sound of my laugh beautifully. I hadn't planned that laugh. It just bubbled up, clean and genuine. When was the last time I'd laughed like that? A slice of sun caught the embossed seal on the foreclosure deed. Official, legal, mine. The camera that had exposed Krista's true nature had given me something better than revenge. It had given me my life back, documented in proper, certified, unshakable proof. I touched the key again, feeling its edges press into my palm. This wasn't just a key to a studio. It was the key to a story that finally belonged to me alone, protected, authenticated, real. Standing in that sun-filled space, I felt something settle into like the last piece of a... I didn't need to shout it or pose in inspirational quotes. I just needed... It wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. One signature at a time. I believe stories like this find us for a reason. If this one touched you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day, and tomorrow's might be the one your heart's been waiting for.